Hi, everybody. Meteorologist Joe Cioffi here. Thought this would be a good opportunity to do an update on an analysis on Tropical Storm Elsa as it continues to move as what the Hurricane Center correctly described as a breakneck pace. It's uh, usually you see tropical systems moving along at a rate of about 15 to 20 miles an hour when they're in the deep tropics. It's really unusual to see them moving at 25 or 30 miles an hour. That's something you often see at the higher latitudes, but we have deep level easterly winds in the atmosphere that has been pushing this system along to the west. I have found this remarkable from the onset because of the fact that it developed in the tropical Atlantic as far south as it did so early in the season as it did. Maybe a few weeks from now, if this were the end of July or certainly the beginning of August, to see a tropical system come out from the deep in the tropical Atlantic in the development area there would be no big deal. But nonetheless, all along, it seems to have been able to hold its own in spite of the fact that it is moving so quickly. Now, this is the wider satellite loop that I'm showing you here, so you can gain perspective of what's going on at the rest of the country. We have a deep trough in the eastern part of the United States that has made it fairly miserable weather-wise in New England and even up into the northern mid-Atlantic states, which have been just kind of on the edge of this system. But the frontal boundary runs south. Once again, we've seen it line up across northern Florida and along the Gulf Coast, which is why you see that east-west band of cloudiness and showers and thunderstorms going on there. Meanwhile, Elsa just continues on its merry way, passing now south of Haiti. And the system earlier today had a bit more of a disheveled look to it as the circulation interacted with the mountains of Hispaniola. But now that it's moved further to the west, the mountainous terrain is having a little bit less of a disruptive influence on the system. And it also appears, at least from the satellite loops that I've been looking at this afternoon. Here's a close-up view. The circulation, if you look closely on this loop, the circulation was exposed for a little while, and then the convection in the last several hours at least seems to have developed again around the center. So this could be the disruption and that exposed circulation. We talked earlier this week about the low-level center becoming decoupled with the middle level circulation center, and that and the fact that it was interacting with the mountainous terrain of Hispaniola, I think contributed to its weakening. But now it looks like that weakening at the very least is leveled off, and we might see this gain a little strength or at least a little more organization as it continues on this west to west northwest track. It looks like the center is probably going to want to pass north of Jamaica, south of western Cuba, and then continue west northwest from there, and eventually going to probably wind up over western Cuba. Here is a water vapor loop, and you'll see how, again, you start to get that disruption going on as it approached Hispaniola and then continued westward. Now that it's over south of Haiti, again, it's a little bit more. The center has less disruption from that higher terrain, and you're seeing that the convective areas, the areas of large areas of moisture here, starting to develop a few convective bursts there in and around on the west side of the center. So it makes for a very tricky forecast overall with respect to where this is going to wind up in the longer term. Now, the Hurricane Center's forecast, this was from the 11 a.m. advisory, and there'll be a new one out at 5 p.m. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of change here. You'll notice that they take the center just off the coast of Cuba, then gradually turn it northwestward and into the southeastern Gulf of Mexico, forecasting a passage by Monday evening somewhere near the Florida Keys. One of the important parts of this forecast is going to be whether Elsa can slow down. It's come off at one point, moving at 30 miles an hour. It's come off that high just a little bit, and it should slow down even more as it starts to respond to a weakness in the ridge of high pressure that's in the upper atmosphere to its north and west that's been driving this thing all along. So by tomorrow morning, approaching that west coast of Cuba, the southwest corner, kind of straddles the coastline here on the official forecast, and then makes that crossover. The distance over Cuba when it goes onto the western side is relatively narrow, so it won't spend too much time. The center won't spend that much time there, but then it'll merge in the Florida Straits. And from there, if you follow the track along, it takes it just off the Florida west coast as a tropical storm, and then moves it inland somewhere. It could be somewhere north of Fort Myers to Tampa, perhaps, and then northeast from there. And this, of course, is going to have an important factor on the forecast down the road as far as the eastern part of the United States. So it looks like, at least from the standpoint of impacting the Florida Keys, that will be during the day on Monday, and then weather conditions will likely deteriorate moving up the coast. This still, by the way, overall remains a relatively small system. So you're going to probably have to see the center pass close in order to get some impact, certainly with respect to the wind. However, the track going on the west side of Florida means that rain may be the bigger issue here for the state of Florida overall. And of course, we'll just have to watch for the possibility. Is there going to be some strengthening that might occur here when it gets into the Florida Straits and off the southwestern part of Florida, because the water temperatures there are in the middle to upper 80s. So that certainly could be supportive for some organization and for some strengthening. The spaghetti plot models, as they're called, this all courtesy, by the way, of tropicaltidbits.com. We always look to see if there is a tight spread from the easternmost. You take maybe the easternmost track and the westernmost track of the storm system, and you throw those out, and then look and see where the tracks are tightly, are close together. And you'll notice how extremely tight they are, and start to deviate a little bit as they move, as the system moves into the Gulf of Mexico. And of course, if it's a little bit further to the west, it's going to spend a little bit more time over the open waters. So let's take a look at what's going on in terms of upstairs, because this is really going to be very important in terms of the overall outcome in the long term. And I'm rolling this back to today, where you have this deep trough here along the east coast that's down almost to northern Florida. So you have upper air westerly winds that go pretty far to the south. At this stage of the game, by the way, Elsa's nowhere close. The edge of the upper high is right about here, and it's underneath that. So this trough is not really going to have much of an impact at all. From where it is, it's having a minimal impact here, and it's going to be lifting out pretty quickly to the northeast for tomorrow and for Monday. Now, part of this, a very small part of this, you'll notice, the Hurricane Center pointed this out in their discussion, a little bit of the southern part of this trough kind of separates and drops down into the western Gulf of Mexico. And that's going to be important, because that starts to turn those winds, the upper air steering winds, a little bit more south-southeast to almost southerly, which is going to drive Elsa into the weakness. The upper high starts to weaken a bit come Monday, pulls away a little bit further to the east. So Elsa's going to move in between the weakening ridge and that upper low that's moving into the western Gulf of Mexico. And that's why the forecast models are taking it up along or just off the west coast of Florida. Now, after it does that, and we assume that that is going to be the case, here it is on Tuesday, for example, the GFS model has the upper low here, okay? You've got your ridge out in the Atlantic. You can see that little line, that height line there. That is the backside of that upper ridge, and this tiny little circle right there represents Elsa, riding along the periphery of that ridge, and it moves inland. Now, for later this week, you'll notice that there's still this basically west-northwest flow coming out of Canada into the northeastern part of the United States. There is a shortwave trough here that is going to be swinging southeastward into the Great Lakes, and that should, depending on what exactly is left, is it going to be just a remnant low with some downpours and thunderstorms, or will it be something a bit more important, a bit more of an identifiable feature? That upper trough will drop southeastward by the time we get to Thursday, and Elsa at this point will be, suddenly you've got south-southwest winds here along the eastern seaboard. So if you follow the track of Elsa, it should move in a northeasterly direction just inland of the southeast coast of the United States, and then maybe emerge somewhere out east of Delaware, south of Cape Cod, as it moves on out toward the northeast. So the key to that is going to be the strength of that trough as it drops down southeastward. Just to look at the European, the models are actually fairly similar. The one difference that the European has that I noticed is the fact that it has a bit more of an identifiable feature with regards to Elsa in terms of how it sees it on its surface. There's your trough. It's a little less developed than it is on the GFS, but I would just caution here because we've seen these troughs turn out to be stronger than advertised by the models, and the GFS, I think, has had a much better handle on that overall than the European. This would be the reflection of Elsa on the European in the upper atmosphere. On the surface, it's just a little bit different. You'll notice that on the surface map, bring it up on this version, and we'll go a little bit tighter. There we go. We'll just bring it up there. And you'll see it here. This is the brand new run of the European from this afternoon. It's, there's a little reflection there southeast of Charleston. You have a cold front that is right about here. There's Elsa, and would probably run up to the northeast just offshore. By Friday, it has it just east of the Delaware coast. You see it there, that little very tight, very small 1,006 millibar low, and then it just goes on its merry way south of Nova Scotia by the time we get to Saturday, because you have another trough dropping down into the Great Lakes with a cold front that'll be heading to the East Coast later next weekend. Still a lot of uncertainty here. Obviously, when you're dealing with features this time of year, it can be really tough. Models have a particularly difficult time in how they're handling it, especially lately with some of the stuff that's been going on. Certainly you saw the outcome of what happened the last 3 days in the Northeast and Northern Mid-Atlantic states with respect to this upper low and deep trough and how it's taking forever for it to get out of the way. So I would expect to see more continued adjustments as the models react to all these subtle changes that are going on from run to run. Here's the Canadian. I mean, just for laughs, we can always look at the Canadian to do something that's a little bit different. Here, the Canadian model, once it moves off of western Cuba, takes it almost straight north and actually strengthens it a bit when it's off it has it off the Florida East Coast. This doesn't bring it up off the West Coast. It actually takes it up just off the Florida East Coast. I wouldn't rule it out, considering what's going on in the upper atmosphere. The ridge to the east, the upper low to the west, the ridge to the east out in the Atlantic, the upper low to the west of the Gulf of Mexico. Again, subtle changes could certainly influence where this ultimately winds up. And then the Canadian, as you can see, has it just inland up the coast as a fairly well-defined system in eastern North Carolina, moving just off the coast near Delaware Bay, passing south of Long Island and east of Cape Cod. I certainly wouldn't rule out that possibility, considering that we do have this upper trough that is swinging down in that northwest flow from Canada. It drops in the Canadian's view. You can see the trough there taking shape. It's further west and not quite, unlike the other models, particularly the GFS that wants to swing that trough eastward because there's another system right behind it. The Canadian has just this single trough dropping down into the Great Lakes, leaves more of an opening to bring this up further to the northeast. And there's your second trough that comes in behind it. The timing is a little different on the Canadian model. So the bottom line is a long way to go to figure out how this is all going to play with respect to Elsa and its impact on Florida, and if we wind up seeing that system, whatever's left of it, how it comes up the eastern seaboard. If this winds up being a weak system, one of the things that could wind up happening is we have this cold front that's approaching starting late Wednesday, where we could see some showers and storms, and then a better chance of showers and storms on Thursday in the Northeast and in the Mid-Atlantic states. You could very well have either just the low coming out as up as an identifiable feature of some sort, or the remnant moisture just winds up getting absorbed by that cold front and enhances the shower and thunderstorm activity that is going to occur regardless, because you have the front coming down. You're going to get some showers and storms to impact the weather across the Northeast Wednesday and particularly on Thursday of this coming week. So we'll continue to keep, of course, a close eye on the developments here. It's going to be very interesting to see what the models do with this over the next couple of days. So we'll probably shoot out another update here tomorrow as we move through this holiday weekend. Just hope everybody's holiday weekend is going well. In spite of the fact of what you see here in the Northeast, this system is going to pull away, and there's a lot of dry air back through the Great Lakes and into the Ohio Valley. In fact, that dry air has actually moved down into the southeastern part of the U.S., making for a spectacular Saturday with low dew points. The humidity is not that high, and temperatures are actually quite reasonable. We're going to see that dry air move into the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states for tomorrow. And then the humidity starts to come back on Monday, and we're going to see the heat come back for Tuesday and Wednesday. Temperatures probably back up into the low and mid 90s before the next round of changes. And again, what will that involve some of the moisture from Elsa or not? That is something that we're going to have to just wait and see on. Okay, have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll keep you updated on Tropical Storm Elsa.